The desert killer David Leonard Wood was born on June 20, 1957, in San Angelo, Texas. David was often described as nervous and hyperactive from an early age. David developed an addiction in the early 70s to drugs and alcohol. At the age of 17, he quit school at Parkland High School after the 9th grade. He had failed several grades in the past. August 1976, David was arrested at the age of 19 on charges of indecency with a child. He was convicted the following year and given a 5-year sentence. He was paroled after serving only 2 years and released on December 28, 1978. 2 years later, in March of 1980, he committed 2 sexual assaults, only 8 days apart. The first was an acquaintance of his. She was 19 years old, the other was a girl. He did not know she was only 13 years old, but was given a 20-year sentence after being found guilty during his prison stay. Wood was a model inmate and underwent several sex offender rehab programs. He knew exactly what it would take for early release. After serving only 6 years, he was again granted parole and released on January 14, 1987. He returned to El Paso upon his release. Between February and August 1987, 9 women between the ages of 13 and 24 went missing in El Paso, Texas area. Marjorie Knox was the first to come up missing. She was only 14 years old, followed by 13-year-old Melissa Lanes. On June 7, only 3 weeks later, Desiree Wheatley, who was 15, was reported missing. Witnesses claimed they had seen Desiree just 5 days earlier in the company of a man who had numerous tattoos on his arm. Desiree attended school at H.E. Charles Jr. High School, which was very near to the home of Woods. 3 days later, 20-year-old Karen Baker was also reported missing. She was last seen on June 5 at the Hawaiian Royale Hotel. On June 20th, an employee at a local Whataburger went missing. She was 19-year-old Cheryl Lynn Vasquez Dismukes. She went to purchase a pack of cigarettes and was never seen again. She was last seen talking to a man in a pickup truck. Soon after, on July 3rd, Angelica Jeanette Frausto, who was 17 years old, was reported missing. She was a dancer at the Red Flame Bar. This was a place where Wood often hung out. Some weeks later, on August 20, Rosa Maria Cascio was reported missing by her parents. She was 24 years old. She had been visiting her sister in Ciudad Juarez. On some days earlier, on August 12, she traveled to El Paso to purchase some postage stamps and was not seen again. Her car was found abandoned the following morning with all her belongings still in the car. My question is why they took so long to report her missing. The next month, on September 9, 1987, 14-year-old Dawn Marie Smith was also reported missing. She was a student at Parkland High School. After arguing with her parents, she ran away from home. However, she kept in touch with some family members until August 28, when she was never heard from again. Again, she disappeared in August. Why so long to report her missing? A police informant told police that she was shot and killed by a biker, but was never proven. Around the same time, Dawn Marie was reported missing on September 4th. El Paso water utilities workers found remains in a shallow grave in the desert. They were identified as Rosa Maria Cascio. K-9 units were brought to the scene, where they discovered the remains of Karen Baker, very close to the remains of Cascio, in a shallow grave. Rosa Maria Cascio's cause of death was ruled to be strangulation. Karen Baker's cause of death could not be determined due to the advanced stage of decomposition. September 19, police were contacted by a sex worker who told a tale of a man who drove her to the desert, where he assaulted her and tied her to the bed of his truck. He then dug a hole in the ground and attempted to strangle her, but was interrupted by passerbys. So he took her to another location in the desert, but again was disturbed by passerbys. He then abandoned the woman in the desert and fled. She would positively identify Wood in a photo lineup. A month later, in October, some hikers came across another shallow grave, which were the remains of Desiree Wheatley and Dawn Marie Smith. They were located not far from the graves of Cascio and Baker. Sometime later, police learned that Cascio was in the company of David Wood just before disappearing. Wood would often give her rides on his motorcycle on the days she vanished. She was seen getting into a beige truck that resembled the one owned by Wood. October 23, 1987, Wood was arrested on charges of kidnapping and sexual assault. He pled not guilty to the charges. 2 weeks later, another shallow grave was discovered not far from the others. The remains were identified as Angelica Jeanette Frausto. Months later, in March of the next year, a couple collecting cans stumbled across the partially buried remain of 23-year-old Susanna Williams. She was never reported missing. She had been stabbed several times and was found in the same area as the other graves. On June 16, 1988, Wood would be found guilty of kidnapping and rape, which violated the conditions of his parole. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison. However, after his conviction, police obtained a search warrant for his truck, his personal items, and his apartment. During the search of Wood's apartment, police seized a vacuum cleaner. In the bag were yellow and orange fibers, which matched the fibers on the victim's clothing. While in the county jail, Wood would tell his cellmate about his crimes, describing in detail the victims as topless dancers and sex workers, and how he would lure them to his truck in hopes of drugs. He would explain how he would drive them to the desert, then tie them to his truck, then rape, and kill them before burying them in shallow graves. Wood was charged with the murders of Williams, Wheatley, Baker, Frausto, Casio, and Smith. The bodies of Knox and Vasquez, Dismukes, and Alanis were never found. On September 1992, proceedings were to begin in El Paso, Texas, but due to the intense publicity surrounding the case, the location of the trial had been changed to Dallas, Texas. In November 1992, Wood was convicted of the 6 murders and sentenced to death. His original execution date was set for August 20, 2009, but postponed due to legal appeals. As of 2024, David Woods is still on death row. He is being held at Allen B. Polunsky Unit in Livingston, Texas. His date of execution is just 6 months from the date of this video. It is set for March 13, 2025. He will be 87 years old. Thank you for joining me for this video. I'm trying to improve them. If you did like this video, please like and subscribe. Good night.